Welcome to the Hopium podcast. My name is Jordan and I'm joined by my co-host Turner.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's Turner. Me and Jordan are starting this podcast mainly focused on League of Legends esports. And I don't know what to say. Dude, fuck, this is
It's like
hard.
it's fine. Whatever. Just keep going. Keep going. We're just
Uh, yeah,
we're
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 just
two
vibing.
Canadian kids just talking about esports. That's all this podcast is.
Yeah,
And
I mean, we're both really into it. We like League of Legends, obviously, but the esports is, I think, what's really brought us together, I think, in
mhm.
terms of the game. We've been friends for a very long time, but I think just the joy of watching teams and the competitive sport. We're both into more traditional sports, so I think esports was like the perfect transition, or yeah, for
Yeah,
us.
for sure. Like we have like a bunch of memories dating back to like middle school and high school watching hockey together. So it was pretty seamless when we both started getting into like we both been gamers for like our entire life, and then
Hmm.
I started getting into League in 2015 and I started cheering for TSM, where Turner came in a little bit later.
Yeah, I was more into Dota 2 actually when I was starting my PC gaming career way back in like 2013. That's like the only game I'd play. But still a MOBA. And then League of Legends, I kind of got introduced like first year university, and since then it's like the only MOBA I play. I don't really follow Dota anymore, so. And I'm a EG fan, just to quickly name the bias.
Yeah, I'm a huge TSM fan, so I am depressed right now. Bjerg leaving, the org is up in flames, but you know what? We have we have we have some semblance of hope coming for us, so that'll be fun to see.
Yeah, I got the
Um,
Chinese boys coming in.
let's go. Um, so this will be a preview of Lock In, which is a preseason tournament for basically to get a first look at all of the new rosters, except for TSM, unfortunately. But let's start talking about 100 Thieves. They
Yeah,
have.
sure.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry.
here, let me. Okay. So we have 100 Thieves. They have no departures and they have the addition of Tenacity. So the roster is as follows: Someday in the top lane, Tenacity is backup, Closer in the jungle, Abadage in mid, FBI in bot lane, and Huhia support.
Yeah, they're the only team to kind of have their roster stay intact, so they kind of have that advantage coming into the tournament. Obviously, they have the Tenacity as their sixth man. We'll see what they do there. We might talk about that a bit later. The next team, TL, entire makeover. There's only a few guys still on the team. That's Core JJ and Santorin. In the top lane, they've picked up Whippo, who's gone back to top. They Bjergsen now, TL. That's crazy. And then a nice
I
80
hate
upgrade
this.
with Han Sama instead of tactical, the Malphite ulti guy. So that team's looking really good.
So we have those two as like our two favorites. Who do you think is gonna actually take it in the end here
The tournament or
for
like
lock in just lock in.
the my instinct would probably, I mean, it's not that outrageous to say TL, or it's not that political to say TL is probably gonna win.
Yeah.
Um I think 100 Thieves will look presumably the cleanest to start. I remember last season, it just seems in general, the first kind of games of the season, the teams that have had a lot of roster shake are pretty rusty. They seem to like not start scrimming till like really close to this tournament. I think like I saw Immortals started scrimming like a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, some teams have been boot camping,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure how much of that is actually team bonding. What about yourself? Who do you
Yeah.
think
I'm
is
just
gonna
gonna
win?
I'm gonna go with 100 Thieves. I think TL, if they win, will be straight up of just every role is better than 100 Thieves. So like Blippo
Yeah.
is a better top laner than Someday, and Santorin is a better jungle. Actually, that's debatable. But then you have mid is pretty gapped, Hansama is pretty gapped, and then Core JJ as well. So it'll depend on also the meta. Right? If we have lots of roaming mids and lots of coordination required to pull off comps, then I could see 100 Thieves winning just because of they have the established chemistry already. But yeah, so my guess is 100 Thieves for now because I think that TL has a couple of questions going to the tournament. 100 Thieves less so. TL has Bjergsen coming off of a gap year, and then we'll see how Hans Sama gets acclimated to NA.
Moving on, we have EG. So my team, top lane, we still have Impact, solid top lane god. Sven Skaren's getting subbed out for Inspired. That's a huge upgrade in my opinion. I don't think that's too much of a hot take. Jizuke getting replaced for Jojo. That should be an interesting topic. And then Ignar is getting replaced with Vulcan. So that's kind of a parallel move, but I think in general having the English speaking support is probably best in terms of communication. I'm really excited for this team, to be honest. I know there's a lot of hype as well as questioning around what Danny and Jojo can do. I think those two alone are kind of creating a bit of doubt within this team, but I think if all goes well, they have the ability to be probably the best team in NA, but the floor is also like, fifth, sixth, so
Yeah,
we'll see.
I think their ceiling is probably top two, right? I think if TL gets all their if TL can reach their potential, I don't think any team is going to beat them just off of pure skill. But I think that EG is probably a close second, especially if they get stuff together. I think if Danny can maintain his rookie season form, and then I think if Jojo Pyun can be league average, they're probably gonna be second or third, would be my guess.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think it's interesting to see the development of EG over the past couple of years, actually committing to their young members rather than doing the classic North American team thing of just subbing them out for an established veteran. I respect their team a lot for that, and I think that within the next 2 years they're going to make Worlds. Maybe not this year, but more than likely next year.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be boring as hell if they just like picked up PoE or Jensen. As much as some people thought that was a good move.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's the way to go.
All right. Moving
Yeah,
on
next.
to Cloud9. So they have the addition of Summit to the top lane. Fudge moves to mid lane. Perks leaves. Berserker comes in for Sven, and a tandem of Winsome and Isles for replacing Vulcan. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think I saw that Winsome is actually going to be the starting support. I can't remember where I saw that, but I believe he is. Anyways, Korea 9 essentially. LS as the coach as well. That should be very interesting. Honestly, I'm not sure what to think about this team because obviously the Koreans they're bringing in, the imports they're bringing in are like really good. Summit was one of the best top laners in LCK. And this Berserker guy in T1 Academy or Challenger, I think it was like really good.
T1
Like
Academy.
yeah, and they're both very young. Like I think Berserker's only 17, and I think Summit's like 01, so he's like 19 maybe. So that's really promising. I think it's really gonna have to come up to the jungle bot mid synergy, which is the NA part of their team, which is it's good in that sense. They brought in Koreans to play the part of like kind of the island roles, I guess you could say. But yeah, I think it's a very interesting team. Highest floor, lowest ceiling sort of team with this one. We'll see.
Yeah, I think Blabber's adaptation to LS's playstyle is going to be really key because we've known Blabber to be this aggressive, in-your-face jungler for so many years since he came on to the NALCS scene, but we also know that LS is completely the opposite in his ideals when it comes to League, where he's a lot more conservative and playing for late game, etc., etc.
Yeah,
So yeah, and not to sin, which is I think is what Blabber's best known for.
yeah.
So we'll see.
So should be interesting. Definitely had a bit of an off season last year. I think the
Hmm.
entire team had some cohesion issues, probably around perks, but we'll see how it goes. Yeah.
He had a good spring split. I had him for fantasy last year. He was amazing. But
Hmm.
yeah, in the summer split, he definitely fell off a little bit more. I think that entire team kind of did. It was a little strange to see because they came into MSI with such a high, and it really looked like they were gonna do something, but they ended up not. But
Hmm.
in the end, it worked out with them being the only team out of groups. So thank God for that. There's a bit of hopium there.
Yeah, good for them. Next we have your team, TSM. Um, so they kind of went a similar route to Cloud9 and EG, except just Chinese. So top lane is still Huni, jungler still Vika, and then mid lane we have Gyaido, and then bot lane Tactical and Shen Yi. So Kaido was, oh, what team did he play for?
Um,
It's on the, was it Sandbox? No,
no,
that
no, no, no,
was,
no.
he was L, he was LPL, right? But he was an
Yeah,
LPL Academy team.
yeah. He was on an LDL team. I think they were called, um, yeah, TT Young is where he came from, and then we have Shen Yi who came from FPX Academy, and Shen Yi actually played a couple of games in the LPL as their backup support.
Hmm.
I have less questions about Shen Yi just because from what I've heard, he's played quite well in LPL, and that's a fairly high standard to play on. But
Hmm.
Kiaiduo is a big question mark for this team, especially because you have the addition of him playing mid lane, which is not one of the island roles Turner mentioned before when it comes to C9, where C9 has their imports in top lane and AD carry, which traditionally aren't roles that you need a lot of communication from. Where you have now Kiaiduo in mid lane, and it'll be all about communicating with the jungler and support, which is lucky that Spica speaks Chinese fluently.
Yeah.
It's
That was exactly the point I was going to bring up. This the relationship between the jungle mid support seems like a very common trait amongst a lot of these teams and how that'll do in terms of their success, or there's at least a strong correlation, I believe, in terms of how that'll do in terms of their success. So yeah, an interesting team. We'll be talking about their actual roster, even though it was announced that their academy roster will be playing um, the tournament. But yeah.
yeah, I'd say like in terms of their academy roster, I did a quick little bit of research on them. They weren't really amazing in academy. They swapped out a few players, but nothing completely game changing for them. And they were roughly seventh best academy team.
Yeah.
I'd say they'd probably just go 0-4, as much as that would be painful to see. It'll just be whatever.
I think I might have more hope in them than you do in that group at least.
Maybe. They're Group A, which we'll talk about later, is for sure the weaker group out of the two.
Oh, yeah,
Like
it's very weak,
by far.
especially with TSM's team being the academy. But
Yeah. So
um, maybe we can just actually after Immortals we'll blast through some of
yeah.
these. Actually,
Well.
well, we should talk about CLG. I think GG and or no Flyquest and Dig we've talked
Sure.
about are kind of like blah, but
Yeah.
Immortals. This is kind of the team me and Jordan think like. I guess you could use the word dark horse. I don't know if that really fits. It's kind of like the team that is just on the outside looking in. It's kind of like, I guess, last year's like dig at one point, I guess,
Sure.
was like that. But, anyways, top lane is still Revenge. Jungler still Xerxes. Mid laner is now PoE. AD is now Wild Turtle. And the support player is still Destiny.
This team surprised a few later on in the summer split. I think their spring split was fairly bad. I don't remember what they placed, but I know they placed in the bottom four. I think they placed around the fifth or sixth slot in summer. And I think like a big key was the development of Revenge. He showed a lot of promise, especially towards summer split. I actually had him in fantasy. So
Yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
go go.
No, I agree. I think Revenge is actually a really interesting player. I think when we do our top rankings and general like fantasy talks in regards to that, I think he's someone that I might be targeting later in drafts just because,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, just a lot of improvement. He has the ability to carry games, which is like really good.
Mm-hmm.
Top lane is an interesting role because usually teams don't play through the top lane, but bringing in players like PoE and Turtle that are like super steady and don't really, I don't want to say they don't carry, but they're not doing things that are necessarily like game positive, or I don't want to, they're not like when I think Jizuke, I think that man like lived by the sword, died by the sword,
Yeah.
where you're either gonna win the game because of him or you're gonna lose because of him. Where it's like PoE Turtle, you'll never probably lose a game because of them, but you probably won't win that many because of them either. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see where they carry from.
Yeah. I think
Uh, yeah,
I think Immortals moves were fairly solid. Insanity and Rays coming out aren't two big losses that you really think of. I think like Rays was an okay move by them last year, but no, I think this is still Immortals with their young core of Revenge. Not really Xerxes. Xerxes has been around for a while, but Revenge and Destiny for sure. And then you have two solid carry players in PO and Wild Turtle. I think their ceiling is probably around fourth. I don't think this is a team that could go to Worlds per se, but
mm,
I think Immortals will have one big moment throughout the year. I think they're gonna take someone down.
yeah, I
Like
could very well see it. Even in this like lock-in tournament, I could see them. I think you had them finishing higher than EG, and
I
like
do.
as much as I don't like that, I think it could very well happen
Yeah.
because they're kind of like the more for sure steady player
I
as of right
guess
now.
I guess I can explain it right now. Where it's like um when I looked at those two rosters, it's exactly what you said, where Immortals has less question marks. I think subbing in a mid laner is a little tricky, but the thing is PoE is so steady that there's not a lot of synergy issues because you know exactly what you're getting from PoE. He's going to sit back, he's going to play mages, and he's going to carry you in late game, right? And same with subbing in a new AD carry isn't all that hard. Where you have EG, where you have a bunch of rookies and question marks, where you have JoJo's performance as a rookie, you have Danny and seeing if he can recreate what he had last year, and then new support, new jungler. It's just, I think Immortals will do better in group stage, and then I think EG will overtake them some point during the regular season.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't argue that really.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we'll move on, I guess, and we'll go
Yeah.
into Golden Guardians. So they're kind of an interesting team. I called them Immortals Light in my notes because they're kind of this team that fits in this like kind of trying to be competitive, but
Mm-hmm.
like on a budget,
Yeah.
presumably.
Yeah.
So top laner is still Licorice, who
Yeah.
they got halfway through the season last year, and then swapped out Iconic for Pride Stalker, who was playing in the lower division of EU, and then I think he had like one stint with Schalke like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yep.
So pretty much a EU Masters player, and then Stick Safe for Loss, which is a clear upgrade, and then
Mm-hmm.
Chime for Ole, which presumably is a clear upgrade. We haven't
Yeah.
seen Ole play in a minute, but I've heard good things about him, and it seems like
Yeah.
he was grinding solo queue
Mm-hmm.
pretty hard. So
Yeah.
yeah, this seems interesting. I really like Blaze Olive in the mid lane. I didn't mention him, but I
Mm-hmm.
think he's really good. Like he's kind of fits in that revenge boat for me, where it's like he doesn't really get that much attention, I think, but
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people in the industry really like him. I think he has good potential. I mean, he was like the first person to pull a TK mid lane last year, which I thought was really cool. I think that's like a good pick, and so yeah, this team should be interesting.
I think the Ole question mark is a big thing. So I think Ole could easily bring this team from. I think we have them listed as seventh. I think Ole himself can bring them up to overtaking like an Immortals or a TSM if they falter, or maybe even the C9 EG. I wouldn't put my money on it, but I think that Golden Guardians are definitely a lot better than your CLG, Flyquest, and Dignitas. Like they're a tier above them because I think if Ole can recreate anything from his prime, you have one of the best supports in the league, right?
Hmm.
I think the Pride Stalker move is a little strange. Like
Yeah,
this isn't exactly like a young EU Masters kid that like, oh, he's got tons of potential, right? He's he had a stint with Schalke, like you said, and now he's just been playing EU Masters, right? Obviously, I don't watch EU Masters, so I have no way to comment on how he's performed, but it's a little strange that they would opt to even use an import slot on him, let alone like pick him up in exchange for like maybe a veteran jungler or even just like a random North American jungler in academy.
yeah, it's very much like a budget move. Beyond that, I don't really know the thought process either. He's still like relatively young. I think he's like 21 or 22 or 22, so like not that old, but yeah, I agree. Um,
Guess we can move on to CLG now, which is a
yeah,
roster I'm in love with. So they they completely change up the roster in every single role. So now their new roster is Jenkins in the top lane, Contracts in the jungle, Palafox in mid, Luger in ADC, and then Poom as their support. I think this is just a really, really smart move from CLG, who have been just the bottom dwellers for the last like 2 or 3 years, and they've only been running veteran rosters, and now this is finally them investing in young talent that actually has potential. Where you have Jenkins as this top laner that performed pretty well for TL last year. You have Palafox, who was one of Flyquest's bright spots, and then you have Luger and Poom, who look to be a very promising bot lane. What do you
yeah.
think?
So I know that Greg Kim, who was previously at EG, I don't know what he was doing specifically, but he took over CLG. Um, and not to be EG biased, but most people that have worked for EG in sort of management or upper management roles tend to seem to be good at their jobs. Not just in League, but in other esports. But he's taken over. He's brought them in this direction, which I agree with you. I really like it. I think it's really smart. Like Luger, I've heard a lot of good things about him. Jenkins and Contracts both show they deserve to be in the LCS. It's cheap, right? It's not gonna cost them that much, and it kind of builds this fandom because I mean, for the same reasons that me and you are kind of excited about them, gives that fandom. Because I find in esports sometimes if you're not like the TSMs or TLs of the world, like, are there even fans of those other orgs? That's kind of what it kind of feels like sometimes.
There used to be a very big CLG fan base, like back in
Yeah,
their
but
like prime.
are they fans of the DLs of the world, or are they fans of CLG?
Yeah,
That's the thing,
exactly. They're
right?
they're more. I think they had quite a few fans when DL left. You still had like Aframu as your base, and then Stixay was amazing. They made that incredible run at MSI in 2016. I'd like to say, but yeah,
Yeah.
they've definitely fallen off since then. I think this can slowly start to recreate some of the magic there, right? Because
Yeah.
CLG used to be that team where it's like, don't doubt them, right? But in the last couple of years, it's like they've been doing relatively nothing. So
Yeah.
I hope that they do well. I think them along with Golden Guardians and same with Immortals. I guess like I shouldn't be rating these teams so highly, but I think all three can have a moment this year. I don't think that any of the three are going to make worlds by any means, but I think that they'll pull off an upset somewhere. I think CLG will have their time. I guess we
Yeah.
can move on to Flyquest now.
Yeah, we'll get these ones out of the way. Sorry, Flyquest and Dignitas fans, but they didn't really give you much to cheer about with these teams. I guess I'll start with Flyquest.
Yeah.
You can do Dig. So Flyquest, top lane. Oh my God, I'm blanking. Kumo. How
Yep.
could I forget EG legend, Kumo? In the jungle, they still got Mr. Jose Diodo, Tukui, right?
Yep, Tukui.
Yeah, instead of Palafox, and then they're still running John Sun as AD, and then they got Aframu instead of Diamond. So yeah, some I don't know, some stale upgrades, I guess you could say, at support, or a stale upgrade, and then Tukui, I don't know.
That's a head scratcher, man. Like I think I've done a little bit of research on Tukui. At the very least, I know how to pronounce his name because I saw a bunch of interviews that Lore did with him. But yeah, from what I've seen, Tukui isn't even one of the best mids in the LFL, which is where he came from. Right? So it's a little strange that they would go for him as opposed to like any other EU Masters player. I think that the approach to like picking up young players from EU Masters compared to, let's say, like collegiate or any academy, it's like that's a fine tactic, right? Like I think that they're gonna be more developed and more acclimated to like the pro lifestyle for sure, right? It seems a little weird to not try to sign the best EU Masters mid, you know, rather than go for Tukui, who is, from what it all seems, is like just an average EU Masters / LFL player.
Yeah, it feels like it's the same questions with Pride Stalker. Obviously,
Yeah.
he's cheap, but there's probably a lot of cheap players.
Yeah.
And then I guess it's a nice segue into Dignitas because they also have someone like that with Blue.
All right. So we have Dignitas, which is Fake God in the top lane, River, Blue, Neo, and Biofrost, which, for me at least, as a TSM fan who had our prime in 2016, like, I love Biofrost. Just like, as I've been a Biofrost fan ever since he came onto the scene. I think, for me personally, as a Canadian, like, Biofrost is very inspiring. He comes from the same hometown, right? Like it was really easy for me to latch on to just becoming a huge Bio fan. I think he still has it. I don't think when he left 2 years ago after the 06 run, I don't think by any means he needed to leave the league. Like I think he was still an LCS support. I think he can still reclaim that. And then maybe be league average this year. I don't think he's going to hard carry this team by any means. And you have a bright spot in Neo, who performed incredibly well last year, especially in the spring split. But Blue and River, I don't know much about, and they seem like head scratcher moves.
Yeah, the only one I'll semi-defend is River, just because I think he played on that PSG talent team, and they've been good, and he has world exposure, so I think he could be a bright spot, but I actually saw a tweet earlier today. He's not going to be making it for the tournament. So they're starting their academy jungler. I hadn't heard of him before, but
Okay.
so we'll have to wait to see. But yeah, so now that we've done all those, I guess we can go back up the list and start talking about more in depth, I guess, things that we are interested to see with the tournament and kind of like, I guess, what will be happening in terms of results and I guess like somewhat predictions. So
All right, let's look at Group A first. I think
sure.
I don't know if we said this before, but Group A is for sure the weaker one out of the two. You have 100 Thieves, C9, Flyquest, Golden Guardians, and then TSM Academy. So You probably only have two solid teams, and then I think Golden Guardians is a solid third, right?
Yeah.
Like, and then you have like TSM and Flyquest fighting out for fourth. It would have been different given if they had their actual team there. I think if their actual team is there, they're probably in that third slot. Could
Mhm.
possibly make an upset for against C9, but I'd say you have 100 Thieves that are clear number one, C9 clear number two, and then Golden Guardians is three, Flyquest is probably fourth. I'm low on the TSM Academy team. And that's no ill will to them. I want them to do as best as they can, but I think if you're a team that doesn't perform against Academy teams, what's your hope to perform against LCS teams?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't have much to argue or differ in that sense. I rank TSM higher than FlyQuest because I'm like really low on this roster. Maybe I'm a
Sure.
little too low. I just think like Kumo isn't LCS level. Tukui probably isn't LCS level.
Yeah.
Jose Diodo looked pretty bad, if I'm being honest, last year, but the team
Sure.
wasn't good exactly.
Hmm.
The shining spot is bot lane because that Johnson Afro pair was really good on Dig, or was it?
Yep. Dignitas. Hmm.
So like that could be good, but yeah, I don't know. Group A, easy peasy. C9 could upset 100 Thieves, but we'll stick with the things we know in that have their roster from last year, so they're probably going to be more practiced.
Yeah. I
Mm,
guess we'll
I
move on
guess,
to Group B, which
yeah.
is CLG, Dignitas, EG, Immortals, and then TL. This
Mhm.
is for sure the more interesting out of the two groups. You have, I think TL is your number one, and then you have Immortals and EG fighting for that 2-3 slot. With CLG is an interesting one, like we said. They're a fairly young team, but I honestly think that they can upset someone here or there. I think that the early prediction they will take a game off of one of EG or IMT in this group.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a good chance that they could even like take the 2-3 spot. Like I
Sure.
think it just really depends on how they come in and uh like we kind of said, like a lot of teams kind of come in really rusty and it's really hard to kind of predict. I saw some odds released on Bodog or something like that, one of those betting websites,
Mm-hmm.
and it was TL first, 100 Thieves, and then it was like C9, EG, and some of these odds, it was like, how are we predict? Like, obviously there's some like calculation, but I don't even know, is C9's roster here? Like, was that still up in the air? So sorry to go back
I
to A, but
I haven't had any updates on that, but you're right. I think there's potential there that they could do the same thing as TSM, and that some of their players might not be able to get to North America on time. But I think one little nuance is that if they can get actually into North America, they can play because this year Lock-in will be online, right?
yeah.
They announced that the other day. So there's hope, but I think like until we've heard any news, I think we assume that C9 is just going to be their regular planned out roster, and yeah, like
Yeah.
so
I guess I'll go back and talk
yeah,
about B a little bit because I kind of went
sure,
back to A,
yeah,
but I don't know. I think this group is interesting how they got pulled, right? Because they do the thing where the first two teams, 100 Thieves and TL, are like in them, and then
yeah,
100 Thieves gets to pick which group goes in the, or which team goes in the opposite group, and they
yeah,
picked EG first. So obviously, teams, well, we know 100 Thieves didn't match up well against EG last year.
yeah.
Like EG was one game away from going to Worlds, am I right? Like they were really
Mm-hmm.
close
Oh
in
yeah,
that in the summer split. So maybe that's why, but I don't know. It seems like teams are pretty intimidated. So I don't know. I think this group is pretty much a toss up, other than like Dignitas probably coming last.
yeah.
But even saying that, they could very much, come fourth,
Mm-hmm.
third. So
This is probably going to be a very like very crazy and volatile tournament. Like for one, you have group stages only um, one round robin, right? So it's not like Worlds where you play every team twice. You only play every team once, which could cause some upsets, right?
Yeah.
I think just because you have four teams making it out, that you're not going to have anything crazy. Like, I don't think that TL or like EG are going to get eliminated by any means, but yeah, I think seeding for sure matters because you have Group A where there's a very clear like tier between 100 Thieves, C9, and the rest. So if you're Group
Mhm.
B and if you want to do well, you really want to be in those top two slots to avoid the matchup in quarters with 100 Thieves and C9.
Mhm. I agree.
Yeah, but I think my like early prediction would be like TL first. I had IMT in second, EG in third, and then CLG in fourth, and Dig in fifth. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And then, what's your early prediction for just who's gonna take it all?
I think I said it earlier, but
Hmm.
I'd probably lean TL.
Yeah.
It's not very interesting. It's kind of
Yeah.
boring take, but I mean that team is by far the best. I think it would actually be kind of like um they would get kind of C9 treatment like last year where that team had such high expectations and they were kind of dudding and then everyone's like, wait, is this team actually good?
Hmm.
If they don't. So
Yeah.
obviously it doesn't really this tournament doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'd say TL.
Yeah. I think I agree with you. I think TL for sure has like the best individual players, right? And this will probably be a tournament that's relied a lot on individual talent, right? Like you don't have a lot of chemistry. There's not a lot of time to scrim, so individual talent probably rules over everything. But I still think that 100 Thieves is gonna take it. I think that when it comes to matchups versus like equal footing teams, I think that's where chemistry shines. I think 100 Thieves and TL could easily be on equal footing right now. They won't be in the future. I'd be very surprised to see 100 Thieves compete with TL later. And I think that we were mentioning this before, just off the podcast, that I think there's three other teams that that have higher potential than the 100 Thieves current roster. I think
Mhm.
Cloud9, I think EG, and I think TSM could easily surpass. Maybe not easily. I shouldn't say easily, but I think that they could surpass 100 Thieves.
Yeah, I kind of wrote it in my notes here, but this team was like so stale last year. And if you think
Mm-hmm.
about some of the major issues, like they really had issues closing out games and just in general had bad macro.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the times they'd get these early leads and I remember people like LS and just like most of these guys doing analytics or like analysis would be like, oh, this team is only winning because they're the most organized amongst a group of or disorganized teams.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's you're kind of like the best of the worst in a sense. Whereas this year, I feel like there's a lot of teams that I feel like the league has gone up in competitiveness by twofold.
For
So
sure. Yeah.
I just don't think it's going to be that easy for them. And then there's this whole like tenacity coming in as the sixth man. And if we're being honest, someday is like probably the weakest player on their team by
Yeah.
far. I don't think it's actually that close. I don't think he's that good.
Yeah.
I think he's like probably bottom half top laner, like if not
Mm-hmm.
halfway.
Yeah.
So I think them and themselves are a bit skeptical of what they can produce, I guess. And if Closer doesn't do what he was doing at Worlds and just in general, then this team is going to struggle because they don't really have the flexibility of other teams and they don't have the ability to
Yeah.
carry through other players. Like Abba's fine. I think he got a lot of hype because he comes in and he's like the best team, blah blah blah, EU mid, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's like crazy good. FBI
Mm-hmm.
is obviously like one of the top ADCs in NA, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to take anything away from him because he's been excellent. But
Yeah.
um, I don't know. I just feel like that with that team. they were kind of stale, and like you said, they very much can be taken over by other teams if they don't adapt.
And it's so weird to say someday is a bottom half, but re- realistically, when I look at the top laners, it's
I
pretty
think I have him
correct.
like I think I literally have him like 5 out of 10.
Yeah, because you
So
have Whippo coming in, right? You have Impact, Impact and Someday when you compare the two, right? I think Someday's floor is so much lower than Impact. Impact is just a constant like 8 to like 9 when you watch Impact play. Impact is amazing, and then you have Summit coming in, who is probably gonna be better. I think Revenge with another year probably
yeah,
rank him higher than Someday, right? And you never know about Jenkins because I think I'm very high on Jenkins. I think he performed amazing on TL when they had that whole Alfari benching in the summer or the start of summer, right? So I'm hopeful for him, and then you can always make the argument that Huni could be better than Someday on his day.
yeah,
Biased
yeah.
TSM take, but like,
No, but I
yeah,
mean, someday last season was getting reduced to a Narbot, which is like that's fine if that's how the team wants to play, but like I don't know. Man can't play anything else, and he kind of got stomped in lane like
sure,
near the in the summer split. So
yeah,
um,
yeah.
guess we'll move on. TL, the current favorites to win the tournament. We kind of talked about it. They're probably like I wrote in the notes the highest expectations of an NA team in a while, and then in brackets ever. Like I don't know, you've been watching longer than me, but
Yeah.
this seems by far the best team NA's ever had.
Yeah, I think so. I think when I like when I go throughout the years of like potential, right? So you have what jumps out to me first, and this is obviously me being a biased TSM fan, but 2016 TSM, you had your Hanser, Svenskeren, Bjerg, Double Lift, Bio, right? That was like a roster that really looked like they could do something at Worlds, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think that this TL team has better players in other roles. So obviously you have the consistency of Bjergsen, right, across those two teams. And then you have Han Sama, who is a double lift comparable, right? I don't think there's like much differentiating them, right? But you have those two solid overall players, right? I think Santorin is a better jungler than Svenskeren was. I think Bwipo is a better top laner than Hanser when like Hanser in 2016, right?
Yeah.
And then I think Core JJ is just miles ahead of Biofrost. Sorry, Bio, like it's Core JJ. Like this guy is by far the best support NA has ever seen and probably will see. Like this guy is amazing. He's a world champion for a reason. Like so I think if TL can get their shit together, right? And I don't think that's a big if, but I think that their floor is Worlds. And then I think they're gonna have the pressure on them to perform at their peak. Because I think their peak is what, World semis?
I mean, winning the thing, I
Could
wouldn't put
be.
a cap on them yet, right? We don't really
Yeah,
know anything.
it's very true. Like
Yeah.
yeah, that's that NA Hopium creeping in.
Yeah.
NA's winning Worlds this year, confirmed.
Yeah.
Get on the
Um,
TL
yeah.
TL bandwagon. Yeah.
And the last thing I had here is like they're just like really good personality wise. Like from what is publicly displayed,
Mm-hmm.
watching streams, they're all like very calm,
Yeah.
like concise individuals. They seem like very willing to listen and like they seem passionate about the game, which I think is important.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see who comes out as the leader in this group. But I think in terms of team building and apart from just like game skill, I think this is like a really well constructed team.
Yeah. I have like one last thing, just as like NA as a whole.
Yeah.
I'm very, very encouraged by the fact that like teams this year are doing new stuff. Right? You have so many new players coming to the league. So you have Cloud9, whose approach is go to Korea, find good Korean players and implement them. Right? And you have TSM's approach where it's the same thing but with China. Right? You have Kiado coming in. You have um, Shen Yi coming in support, and then you have your current jungler in Spica, who you're making the best use out of him, right? He's a NA jungler who is fluent in Chinese, right? Which is not something a lot of teams even have, right? I don't think any team has that, right? So it's an interesting
Yeah,
advantage for them to have, and to acquire two up and coming Chinese players, pretty solid. We'll see how that pans out, and then yeah, I'm glad that NA is being, for lack of a better term, braver with their roster construction, right? And not
mhm.
just sticking to the same veterans that have played for the last 2-3 years.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, the league in itself is just so much better because of that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're willing to not just like recycle old players. Like, like I mean, there's still some of it in the league, but um, I mean, yeah, it's good that we should bring in new people. Did we just skip to? I guess we didn't really skip. We're on EG now, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I think like
Yes.
I think EG in terms of potential, like we said before, second or third in the league, right? If they hit their peak, right? I think if TL hits their peak, they're first, and then EG number two or number three, right?
Mhm.
I
I would
think they're gonna
agree.
Worlds. I think they're going to Worlds. Like, I know. Before I said that they might not make it this year. I think I think that they will make it. I think TSM's roster needs another year. I I haven't seen anything, right? This is like by far like way too early predictions, but I think that TSM's project will probably need another year, and I think that EG has enough in them to overtake 100 Thieves for either that 2 or 3 spot, and then you have C9 in one of those 2 or 3 spots. I don't know who comes on top when it comes to CG or EG and C9, but I think the teams that are going to Worlds are probably going to be TL, Cloud9, EG.
Yeah. Um, I guess just like quick little tidbit because I saw the odds. They're at plus 700 right now. I think they're the fourth best odds. I think honestly, bias aside, that's a pretty dark horse bet if you're a betting person. It
Mm,
seems a bit ridiculous judging that um we, like we're bringing in essentially the best jungler from EU. Support is still good, obviously. Danny, Rookie of the Year. And C9's like kind of, you know, mysterious and like don't have a completely English speaking or like one language speaking team. Um, I think obviously we talked about it a bit, but like Jojo and Danny have these huge question marks. I mean, I this is kind of biased, but I obviously think Jojo is going to do well. I've only heard good things about him. I've seen him play like the man's got hands like no other. He's probably has probably the best hands in the league, like up there. Because he's so young and just like he
yeah,
was a Fortnite pro, right? So
yeah.
those guys are crazy. But we'll see. He plays aggro jungle, so I'm assuming or aggro laners, so I'm assuming that he's gonna be getting the jungle priority, which I think is what inspired. I think that's what they did on Rogue last year. I think the mid lane got most of the priority. Um, but Danny, I think his biggest gripe was the laning phase, and his laning stats were pretty poor. But if you think about it, if he can kind of become that tactical, where maybe not tactical like as a player in total, but
Yeah,
where Core JJ had the highest roam percentage in the league for like 2 years,
yeah.
and man's just solo lane. So if he can just become that guy that can just solo lane and chill, I think it'll be really good.
Yeah. Like like you said, I think JoJo is a super big question mark, but like he could easily be one of the best mid lanes in in the LCS. Like I think that this is probably the most hyped up player from Academy we've seen in 2-3 years, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to go back to maybe like that C9 golden era of like Blabber and Vulcan, right? And you'll take that if you're EG. You're probably getting like a you're probably getting a top 3 mid at his like at his potential, right? I don't know if he can. outperform like a Bjerg, right? I think that's a bit much for him, but I think that he could easily be like the second or third best mid in NA when it's all said and done. But we'll see. It's a little too early to tell.
Yeah, I agree. I guess we'll move along. TSM now, your team.
Yeah.
We said a lot about them already,
Oh
but
yeah.
it's like I said earlier, I think it just comes down to that trifecta of the mid jungle support. I think that's really going to be important. I mean, that's I think what they were going for with the Chinese speaking stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Tactical, I think it's a bit of an upgrade from Lost. Solid AD, not really much to say about him.
Yep.
Huni, I don't know. I don't think he's that good. I think
Yeah.
he's kind of
We
washed.
we
So
both know, man. Just he traveling from EG to TSM, right? Like I
he wasn't good on EG. So
yeah,
like,
dude. I want to believe in Huni. I want to believe in the dream that he'll recollect the T1 Huni or the Fnatic Huni of old, but I don't think it's there anymore. I think like honestly, I think what happened there was TSM just didn't find anyone, right? They didn't find any local talent, and they just probably couldn't get revenge, right? I think there were early rumors about revenge coming to TSM. It would have made sense for sure, but if you can't get like a good young player, then might as well just hold pat with Huni. It's fine, right?
yeah.
And then yeah, you have the project of Kaido and Chenny, which like we said before, I think has potential. I think when you look at the top two regions in the world, it's very clearly China and Korea. So bringing over these players, you'd hope that maybe like they can use their potential and find someone good here. But I think what will be key is their how well TSM as an org acclimates them to NA, right? There's been tons of examples from EU and Korea where you bring over a player and they just don't perform as well just because of solo queue environment and just anything outside of the game, right? Like
Yeah.
you're bringing someone from a completely different walk of life, right, to a team that they probably will not be able to communicate with, right? Which I think is a big thing that TSM did was that they brought over two players, right? They brought over two Chinese speakers, so at the very least you have they have each other to lean on as like a as personal support, and then you have Speaka, and from what I've heard, TSM has invested a lot into infrastructure and not just having a translator, but like having translators and having chefs and having development coaches and psychologists that can speak Mandarin or Cantonese. I don't know which one they speak, but basically what I'm saying is I think what's happening is TSM has learned from Sword Art, right? Sword Art was a failure, right? He just was. And it's nothing against the guy, right? He tried his best, but I think what happened is TSM has learned that hey, you can't just plug and play and import from Asia, right? It doesn't really work that way. You need to invest in other things around the game because if they're not given the best opportunity outside of game, they will not play well when it comes to the actual game.
Yeah, it's like man got the bag and just ran with it. So
Yeah.
good for him. But I mean, I don't know. I agree. Everything you said, I think, is really good. I think, like, looking past can this man play League of Legends? I think there's a huge mental aspect that probably gets overlooked a little too much
Yeah.
in esports.
Yeah. And that comes with the whole esports is a very young industry, right? It's only been around like League esports has only been around for what, 10 years, right?
Mm.
And we've gone a long day from worlds being held in Freak's basement, you know? So
Hmm.
and then there was like that development of like gaming houses, and people are realizing now that like, oh wow, gaming houses not the play. You can't spend time with 5 people every single day, 24/7. Right? It just doesn't work that
Yeah.
way. You need space from the game, and you need space. You need space to work. You need space to just relax. Right? It's like anything. Right? But
Yeah, exactly.
but yeah, I think it's hopeful. I think TSM is doing a better job right now. I'm not going to say just yet that they've done a good job because I haven't seen anything, right? But this will be one of those topics we'll have to talk about at the end of the year when everything's all said and done, and then potentially next year, right? I think that I think TSM fans need to realize that we aren't the juggernaut anymore, right? We're not the team that you can pencil in for first every year anymore. We haven't been for a while, so and this will be a roster that needs time. I think that my personal opinion is in spring that they're gonna hover around 6 to 7. I think Immortals is gonna be at a higher level just initially. Um, but yeah, I think like temper your expectations, right? This is probably a multi-year project, right? You can't just throw in a bunch of rookies and expect them to be the best team in NA. You need to give them time.
Yep. Let's see. I guess go Immortals. These next few teams. I was gonna say with the TSM comment, them not being top of the top anymore. They're still gonna get that media coverage because it seems like LCS panel and just in general, like people
Oh,
who cover LCS only cover like 3 teams, which is
yeah,
kind of frustrating. So I hope we can be
yeah,
a little more open to that. But as I say that, these next like 4 teams or
yeah.
5 teams are a little less.
I think we've gone enough into these teams, right?
Yeah,
If I'm
there's not
being
much more
honest.
we can say. Like
Yeah,
CLG, we talked about, rookieism. Flyquest and Dig are peas in a pod,
yeah,
and Immortals and GG are kind of in the same tier
yeah.
of things. So yeah, I don't know.
I think,
Yeah,
yeah, it's TSM is just the Leafs of the LCS, right? They're just always gonna get coverage no matter how bad or how good they're playing because it gets views, right? Raging about TSM gets views, praising TSM gets views, right? Like
Mhm.
anything about TSM will get views. And then
Mhm.
I think like TL's brand has gotten really, really big, and C9's brand is really big. I think this will be the year of EG. I think EG will finally get like the coverage they deserve because I think that they've been snubbed from it for the last 2 years, and that might be a little bit of our bias, right? Like if if you didn't uh, watch LCS with me, would I look at EG as much? Probably not, right?
Yeah,
So we'll see. I think I think EG has lots of potential this year, and I think that they're gonna grow, especially with the fans, right? I think it's really, really easy to cheer for a team that has good young players. It's exciting, right? It's exciting to
yeah,
watch to see what Danny can be and what JoJo can be, right?
exactly. So yeah, I think that'll end off our first episode.
Sure.
That
That's
was long, but
yeah.
I feel like it's our first go, so hopefully you
Yeah.
came through and listened to it all. Um, we have quite a bit more in store. I think both of us will be doing ranking lists, or
Yeah.
maybe either individually or together of each position, each role. So those should be out
Yeah.
soon-ish, and then kind of before the season, I guess you'll kind of get more fantasy related things as we both play Fantasy League, and it's really fun. And
Totally
yeah,
recommend. Would totally recommend. I think it was it's a very big growing scene. It did very, very well last year, I think. Right? In what? In like a 3, 4 year hiatus, right?
yeah,
And Yeah, so if you need help with your drafts or with rankings, etc., we're gonna be doing draft kits. We're gonna be ranking every position from 1 through 10 to say who's most fantasy relevant, who's least, etc., right? And we're hoping to do videos come every week and talk about waiver wire pickups because if anyone listening has played other forms of fantasy, such as hockey or basketball, right? Waiver wires mean a lot, right? Like manipulating the waiver wire to pick up players that are valued low and you'll get production out of them. That is the difference in whether you can win or lose a fantasy season. Right?
Yep. So yeah, that's all in store. Thanks for listening.
Awesome.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.